It does rather, replied Nick, and he shuffled closer to Tunks. You said that your father was a wizard at school, and he was mole-born. She nodded. And then, for some reason, his powers started to fade until he was left with none. He didn't seem too worried about it, and neither was her mother. But I've always wondered why no one thought to ask. Tunks broke off as a pair of hasty feet hammered down the stairs, along the hall and into the kitchen. They heard the kitchen drawer be pulled open and cutlery landing on the wooden surface. She is adorable, said Nick, looking at Tunks. I'm so glad you didn't give her up. He reached up and stroked her face. One day she'll have a brother or sister, said Tunks. And we'll be like a normal family. She waited until Nick nodded too, and they both smiled. Now, what can you say about these? I'll have to look into these a bit more, conceded Nick, but from what I can see, from the hair that you gave me of your father's from when he was 13 and the other from last week. He pointed to the bands on the one trace before holding them both up to the light. They match identically, except for an extra line, here. He pointed on one of the traces and Tunks nodded. It was clear that there was something extra there. The trace with this on was from your father's 13-year-old self. It is absent in the one that you took from him last week. So what are you saying? That something definitely changed in your father's DNA between the time he was 13 and now. We can only conclude that it was his inability to do magic. Tunks nodded and pulled the trace closer to her again, looking at the black stripes on the white printer paper. I will look into this further, said Nick, getting to his feet. At least I'm a biologist. I'll tell you again, Cecilia Frobisher, if you had come to me with this it would have taken days not months. She wasn't allowed to, said Tunks, stating the obvious as the door opened swiftly with a 9-year-old attached to the handle. We're coming, Freya, said Nick, and the girl darted off back into the kitchen. I know that, Tracy, he added, smiling, and took her by the hand, closing the door and opening another.